Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Lonnie Bunch. Come on up.
Thank you all so much. Thank you. I can't tell you how humbled and honored I am. I don't do awards. I think the most important thing I can say is that this museum has happened because of the support from many people like you, but also because of an amazing, gifted staff. Many of them are here today, and I can't call them all out, but the Deputy Director, Kinshasa Holman Conwell, is here. Kinshasa. I can't tell you how much all of your words mean to me. Representative Norton, when I first came back in our first meeting, you said something to me that has stayed with me. You said, "You better be good." And I've never forgotten that. And your support all along has made this happen. And I just want you to know that the affection that you felt today is amplified 1,000 times by those of us in the museum. So thank you so much for what you've done for us. And I'm honored to receive this award because of my love for the district, but also because of how important this historical society is. I was president of a historical society. I know how central historical societies are to a city's identity. It is the glue that helps hold communities together. It is a glue that is crucial, especially when it tries to be inclusive. And I gotta tell you, you are so lucky to have John as your leader. John, you've done great work. Thank you so much. As the Congresswoman said, 11 years ago, we began this endeavor with a staff of 2. We had no idea where the museum would be. We had obviously no architect, no money, but even more humbling is we didn't have a single object to call our own. All we had was really the expectations, unmet expectations of many generations. And what we had was a vision and a belief in what was possible. We thought a lot about what should a 21st century museum be. On some ways, it was simple. It had to be a place that would help us all remember the rich history of the African American. It would help us remember in new ways the Martin Luther Kings, the Sojourner Truths. But it also has to remember all the people who get left out of the narrative, who do the living, breathing, and dying in this country. So it was really important for us to help America remember. But we also realized that at the Smithsonian, we had an opportunity to help America confront its tortured racial past. This had to be a museum that would make people cry as they pondered the pain of slavery and segregation. But they should also find the joy that is in this community. They should tap their toes to Duke Ellington or Louis Armstrong or somebody from the hip-hop world. I have no idea who it is, but you'll tap your toes. But in some ways, the museum had an opportunity to be more than a place that helped you remember. It really had an opportunity to say that this is a museum that uses African American culture as the lens to understand what it means to be an American. That this museum says this is not an ancillary story, this is not a story by Black people for Black people, but in a way, this is the quintessential American story. When we talk of core values of optimism, resiliency, spirituality, where better to look? When we think of moments when we've enlarged our sense of liberty or redefined our notions of citizenship, where better to look than within this community? So for us, this is a museum that says this is all of our story. Whether you are white, Black, Latino, whether you have been in this country 200 years or got here 20 minutes ago, this is your story. And we felt it was crucially important to craft a museum that was really about collaboration, that would really realize that at the Smithsonian, we could bring people to Washington And then we pushed them back to the Historical Society of Washington, D.C., or to the California African American Museum. That in essence, if this museum doesn't help those that do the work, then we failed. It's not enough to be successful on the mall. But was really also crucial for us to realize that one of the things Americans don't do well is global. We don't do international very well. And this museum had to help people understand how we've been shaped as a country, how the African American experience has always been international. And that was brought home to me on a trip. I was up by the Arctic Circle, and I was talking to a village elder through the translator. And he had two questions. He said, "Are you an American?" That was easy. Then the second question was, "Do you know Al Green?" Now I gotta tell you, Al Green in the middle of nowhere? So when I got back, I called Al Green. He said, "Of course they knew me." So in essence, what a difference, however, 11 years makes. Obviously, you've seen the building. We are far from homeless. We have the best location in Washington. You know, we've got a building that will contribute to the fact that it will be the first green museum on the National Mall. And what we have is really 100,000 people have joined as members even before the doors have opened. And I want to be candid, we have raised over $560 million in public and private support. We have another $10 million to go, so... But I'll tell you what pleases me most. What pleases me most is the fact that Americans have trusted us with their artifacts, with their stories, with their histories. I am always moved by the people who have shared these with us. I think of a time when a woman walks into my office and says that her grandfather was a black soldier in World War I, and she had stuff that I want to look at it. She turned her bag over and dropped it on my desk, and in it, it turned out her grandfather had been one of the black soldiers in the Harlem Hellfighters, the 369th. And they were so good, but the American government didn't want to use them, so they fought in French uniforms. And the French honored them so well that they gave them the Croix de Guerre, their version of the Congressional Medal of Honor. There, sitting on my desk, was this Croix de Guerre from 1919. I said to her, "You're not going anywhere till you sign the paper and give that to us." But I think I'm always struck of a trip Kinshasa and I took to Philadelphia. A man called us, a great collector, and he said to me, "I've got material on Harriet Tubman. Would you like to see it?" Now, I got to be honest, I'm a 19th century historian. I said, there's no material on Harriet Tubman, but I figured Philadelphia, cheesesteak, might as well go, right? So we go to Philadelphia, and this man takes us into a room, and he pulls out a box. And he reaches in and he pulls out photographs of Harriet Tubman's funeral in 1912 that no one had ever seen. And he kept pulling things out. And every time I said, "That's amazing," he would smile, and in his excitement, he would punch me. Now, he was 6'6", an old football player, and it hurt. But then he reached in and he pulled out a shawl. And there's a famous picture of Harriet Tubman 3 days before she died, wrapped in this shawl. There it is in front of us, that was given to her by Queen Victoria. And then he pulled out a hymnal that had all those spirituals she used to sing when she went into the South. "Steal away, Jesus, swing low, sweet chariot." By then, I'm not sure whether I was crying because of the artifacts or the pain, but I was crying. And the fact that he then said to us, "I could sell this, but rather this deserves to be given to the American people." And he gave it to the Smithsonian. Or I will never forget the woman who came up to me at an event like this at the end of it, and she said she had been a young Jewish student who quit Brandeis University in 1963 to go south to register black voters. And she said, "I've been carrying something for years and I'd like to give it to the museum." I opened the bag, and it turned out she was in Birmingham the day the church was bombed, and she had shards of stained glass from that church to give to the museum. What I realize is that people have waited for this moment and have opened their doors and opened their hearts. And I have to tell you, while I am so excited about the people who have given us material, it really is more than that. It's the average person who comes up to us on the street and talks about how important this is. My staff knows the only superstition I have is I never got on an airplane without shining my shoes. So I know every shoe shine guy. You pick the airport, I know where they are. So normally when I go into a community, I spend a couple days on television, so I'm pretty visible. I was flying back from Dallas, went to get my shoes shined. It was an elderly African-American man. He starts to shine my shoes. He looks up and he says, "Are you that museum guy from Washington?" I said, "Yes." He doesn't say a word, nothing. He finishes shining my shoes. I reach in, I give him $8. He said, "Keep it for the museum." Now, I gotta be honest, he's a shoe shine guy. So I said to him, "Look, man, look, take this money." And he said to me, boy, did he say this loud too. He said, "Do not be rude. Do not embarrass me. Recognize that I'm not even sure what's in a museum, but it may be the only place my grandchildren understand what life did to me and what I did to life." In a way, that's why we build a national museum. We build a museum, yes, it's a great building, and yes, it'll have wonderful artifacts, and it'll tell great stories, but we build it to make sure that man's grandchildren get to understand who he was and who America was. And so, in some ways, the goal of the museum is pretty simple. It is the craft of museum that helps make America better, that helps America look back and understand where it once was, helps America look to today, to contextualize, to understand the world we live. But it should also point us towards a future that we hope will bring us together. And so tonight, I accept this honor on behalf of all the people who sacrificed so much to make this dream a reality. I accept this on behalf of the enslaved women who got up every morning and fed their children before they went into the fields, and who refused to let the fields strip them of their humor or of their humanity. I accept this on behalf of all those families that left Mississippi for the south side of Chicago in 1913 in search of a better day. And I accept this on behalf of women like my own grandmother, who scrubbed other people's floors, who did other people's laundry so that her children and grandchildren wouldn't have to. In some ways, ultimately, by bestowing this, I realize it's not about me. What you are really saying is that there is nothing more powerful than a people, than a nation steeped in its history. And there is nothing nobler than honoring all of our ancestors by remembering. Thank you very much.